Chapter 3, Job's Journey. When life hits maximum crisis mode. If you thought Elijah had a rough patch, buckle up. We're about to meet someone whose story makes a juniper tree moment look like a minor inconvenience. Welcome to Job's world. The original everything that could go wrong did go wrong scenario. Here's the setup. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was perfect and upright, one that feared God and eschewed evil. First things first, Job wasn't suffering because he messed up. This guy was legitimately basking in the bright smile of God, protected safely inside a divine protection bubble of abundant blessings, generously sharing his massive wealth, happy, cohesive family gatherings, spotless reputation across the world, deeply loving, conversing, and exercising daily faith in God. When crisis goes nuclear, then everything falls apart in one day. All his wealth, taken. His children, death. His health, decimated. His reputation, in shambles. Ever had one of those days where everything seems to go wrong? Job had the ultimate bad day, multiplied by 12. We're talking about skin erupting with painful boils, possibly elephantiasis. Imagining your skin ballooning and bursting with nasty infected boils. Complete financial implosion. Family ties ripped to shreds. Multiple funerals. Wartime devastation. And then friends who just can't even be friendly. Rock bottom has a basement. Job 2. Then said his wife unto him, Dost thou still retain thine integrity? Curse God and die. Talk about zero support. His own wife is basically telling him to give up, die, call it quits. And his friends, they're so shocked, they sit in jaw-dropped silence for 7 days. 7 days of awkwardly staring. No words, just staring, without capacity to formulate a complete connected thought. Job gets so low, he starts wishing he'd never been born. Chapter 6. Oh, that I might have my request, and that God would grant me the thing that I long for! Exclamation point. Even that it would please God to destroy me, that he would let loose his hand and cut me off. Another exclamation point. The mirror trap. For most of the storyboard, Job is doing what many of us do when life crashes. He's stuck in a box of mirrors, just staring at his problems, internalizing. He's complaining about his situation, defending his personal righteousness. Evaluate my pristine track record of integrity. Looking at everything through the lens of poor me. Considering misguided advice from his friends who actively misrepresent the true identity and the true heart posture of God. God's epic perspective shift. Then God shows up with likely the most intense Q&A session in history. God grabs heaven's microphone and proceeds to lambaste Job with a barrage of precisely 77 rhetorical questions that broadcast clearly, are heard widely, and likely are delivered at significant volume. God's essential message to Job was, let's talk about something bigger than your own problems. Okay, Job? The first 40 questions are about creation, nature, the physical world, well beyond Job's power. Who's in charge here? You or me? Followed by 37 rapid-fire questions adjusting Job's perception on God's power, contrasted with Job's limitations. Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare, if thou hast understanding, is one of the 77 questions. These questions aren't meant to crush Job. They're a divine chiropractic adjustment intended to lift his eyes up from inside his mirror box of misery and fixate instead on the grandiose, expanding glory of God's true nature, His identity, His provision, His creative capacity, His massive muscles, God's enduring endlessness. It's like God saying, hey, buddy, let's lift your mind off your situation and onto my power for a few minutes. Look on up in here. Take a mental walk outside with me. Here, hold my hand. The breakthrough moment. The real game changer happens. Where'd we go? The real game changer happens in Job 42, verse 10. And the Lord turned the captivity of Job when he prayed for his friends. Did you catch that? The supernatural turnaround sparked when Job stopped focusing on himself and started thinking and praying on behalf of others, even the friends who'd given him terrible spiritual advice. That's what we call a divine neck adjustment. God snapped Job's perspective back into proper alignment with God's reality. The double restoration. Here's something cool that often gets missed. Job's wealth didn't just magically reappear. Before all this drama, Job had a solid reputation for helping others and solving problems. He ran multiple successful companies that simultaneously served the community. When Job finally got his eyes off himself and back onto serving God and loving others, guess what happened? He became twice as productive, which means he could help twice as many people. Wealth is one of many rewards for being others-focused with God's power, using resources for solving people's problems. Obviously, your bank account doesn't define your worth, not even close. But how you treat others, that leaves a legacy. Job didn't just magically magnetize double blessings by sitting around feeling sorry for himself or staring at a vision board with an exotic car motivating his business efforts. No, Job got back in the game of being a blessing to others. Whether you're managing your allowance or starting a lawn mowing business, remember, wealth results from solving real problems for real people. When one passionately loves God, that same person will fervently serve others. Don't just sit, soak, and sour in the stew of despondency. Be an active business servant. It's very rewarding. Passing the ball to you. Take a moment to write your answers with God's help. When life gets rough, do you tend to get stuck looking in mirrors, focusing on yourself, or looking through windows, looking out at others and upward toward God? How often do you pray for others when you're going through tough times? Does God know that you pray for your friends? What would it look like to shift your focus from your problems onto God's power? Your spiritual homework. Here's what Job's story teaches us about handling maximum crisis mode. Sometimes bad stuff happens and it's not your fault. Perfectly okay. Your circumstances don't redefine God's character. His attributes are consistent, especially when evidence temporarily suggests otherwise, when we can't see it. Getting stuck in self-reflection only makes things worse. The pathway to freedom often starts with a proper view of God. God's power and purpose are bigger than your temporary problems. Maybe you're establishing a pattern for the next generation. A moment to reflect. Before moving on, consider this. Job went from being the richest man around to losing everything, to having double what he started with. But the real victory wasn't in getting stuff back. It was in seeing God's perspective and breaking free from self-focused thinking. Remember, the key to Job's breakthrough wasn't in understanding why everything happened. Deliverance from mental, physical, and spiritual captivity was opened by shifting his focus from his circumstances onto God's greatness, diverting from self-pity to serving others. Sometimes the best cure for depression is helping someone else out of theirs. And now, get ready to immerse yourself into the adventures of David, a guy who somewhat wrote the manual on emotional honesty with God. While Job had one massive crisis to navigate, David's life was like a nonstop pinball, ping, ping, ping arcade of extreme highs and devastating lows. We're talking about David, the warrior poet who went from shepherd boy to giant slayer to fugitive to leading the nation and then experiencing his own children crushing his heart, who wrote songs of pure joy one day and then begged God to demolish his enemies in the next song release. This guy didn't just listen to worship music, he wrote it. He, straight from his heart, felt emotions towards God, singing from the heart for the Lord. When his own men were ready to stone him, yeah, that happened. When his own son tried to steal his throne, when he messed up so badly it would make anyone want to quit the ministry and run away forever, David knew one secret that kept him going: total, raw, unfiltered honesty with God. Let's dive into how this emotional powerhouse learned to process his struggles by pouring out his whole heart to the only one who can handle it.